The skill we're going to be looking at here is working out the distance and time between places on a map. So when you're doing this, there's a couple of things that you've got to know how to do first. One of the things that you've got to know how to do is work out the scale so that you can find out the real life distance between 2 points on a map. So we've got 2 points here on a pretty blank map. One is marked A and the other one's marked B. And what you've got to try and picture this situation is if you were to drive from A to B and you knew the distance between A and B on the road and you knew how fast you were driving, then you could work out how long the journey is going to take to drive at that speed for that distance. So to do that, once you've used the scale to work out the actual distance, the real life distance between those 2 points on the map, there's this formula that you can use with a little bit of maths, and calculator helps for this one, to work out most of the questions that you get given. So it's time equals distance over speed, or you can move those letters around so you can have finding out the distance by speed times time, or finding the speed by distance over time. So before we have a go at a few of the questions, another thing that you've got to remember when doing this on your calculator is that often students just get the numbers that they're left with as an answer and they'll put it down on paper, but 3.5 hours is actually 3 hours and 30 minutes. So you've got to remember that 0.5 of an hour, half an hour, is actually 30 minutes. So when we change things into hours, minutes and seconds, the numbers change because minutes and seconds only go as far as 60. To do that, whenever you get an answer, most calculators will have a little button that looks like this. So it's got degrees, minutes, seconds, and then it'll convert the number that you get from an answer into what's going to be the correct answer that the examiner is looking for. So at the moment, we're going to be working with this little diagram here. First thing we need to do is work out with that scale what the actual distance between A and B is. So if you've got a copy of the worksheet, measure that now. And this comes in at about 4 centimeters. And so if I'm using that scale there, 1 to 5 million, that means 1 centimeter equals 5 million centimeters. And so 4 centimeters times that by 4, and I can do the same with that. 4 times 5 million is going to give me a nice big number, 20 million centimeters. And then I can convert that to meters, so I can get rid of 2 of the zeros. And 4 centimeters then is equal to 200,000 meters. And there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. So on this map with that scale, that 4 centimeter line is equal to 200 kilometers. And the important thing to do here is have all your units, because speed is in kilometers per hour, we want to work with a number that's in kilometers so that they're all in similar units of measurement. So at the moment we know the distance from A to B in real life, that 4 centimeters works out to being 200 kilometers in real life. So we're going to use that in a moment to have a go at questions with that formula. Now the question we've got, this is a pretty typical sort of exam question. Question 1 says, how long would a straight line journey take if you were traveling from A to B, averaging at 90 kilometers per hour? So we've got two of the three bits of info. We've got the speed, 90 kilometers per hour is the speed. We know the distance between A and B was 200 kilometers. And so if we want to find time it would take, time equals distance over speed. And so that distance, 200 kilometers divided by 90, should give you the number that ends up being the answer. So if I go to my calculator and I do 200 divided by 90, so if I hit equals, I'm left with 2.2 recurring. Then here's that little key that I was speaking about with degrees, minutes and seconds. So I'm going to then take my answer, hit shift and that button, and it tells me that time it would take them, knowing distance is 200 kilometers and I'm traveling at 90 kilometers per hour. The answer, it would take me 2 hours, 13 minutes and 20 seconds to complete that trip. So it really helps to have a calculator to do these ones. My answer would be 2 hours, 13 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay. So in that case, you've got the second question B traveling at 45 kilometers per hour, which is half the speed of 90. So by the time you've gone through that formula again and replaced 90 with 45, because you're traveling at half the speed, what you should get is a number that is pretty much double that one. And then if you put in 30 kilometers for the third question, you should get an even longer amount of time because you're traveling at a slower distance.